You're listening to the Toolstation Western League podcast with Ian Knockholds and Tom Hiscott.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 26 of the Toolstation Western League podcast with me, Ian Knockholds, and I'm delighted to welcome on the line, it is the editor of the Western League Bulletin, it is Tom Hiscott. Hello, Tom, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good to see a bit more action get underway this weekend. Obviously had a very quiet week last Saturday in particular with all those postponements. So yeah, good to see that the weather abated for a couple of hours at least and got a few games in.
Yes, of course, we got together in the week and the weather was raging against us on that occasion, wasn't it? And I mean, for the last 2 weeks, we've had a storm, haven't we? We've had, and they've even given them names, which of course I can't remember off the top of my head now. But frankly, how we didn't get one at the weekend, I don't know. I'm very glad that we didn't. I did go to Devizes. I was one of the few that did because really the weather was absolutely it wasn't conducive to good football watching. So for anybody out there who did go to a game at the weekend, then well done to you, and as you quite rightly say, Tom, well done to all the clubs who managed to get a fixture on.
Absolutely, yeah. It's obviously tough times for groundsmen and, as you say, as clubs as well, making decisions on things like that with pitches as they are. But yeah, good to get some football underway.
We've got plenty to discuss on this week's podcast. We've got interviews with the Exmouth manager Kevin Hill and also the co-manager of Calne Town, the Division 1 leaders, Trevor Rawlings. We talked to him as well. Just before we get into the weekend's games, there are a couple of things that I'd like to share with you, the listeners. Many of you will have heard that Roy Holmes, the chairman of Buckland Athletics, sadly passed away on Sunday morning. Now, there's very little that I can add to the many messages of condolence that were sent to the club and to Roy's family. But I do know that Roy's passing was mourned by many in football, not just in the Western League. I can say with a great deal of certainty that, and as far as the Western League is concerned, he was incredibly well respected and he was a very well liked figure, and he will be very much missed, and we certainly share our thoughts at this difficult time with both Buckland Athletic and Roy's family. Now, news like this reminds us that football as a game has the power to do more than to just entertain. It's an opportunity, a wonderful opportunity to make friends, and that those friendships can last a lifetime. And on that note, I'd like to introduce an interview that I did earlier today with Andy Stone. Now, for those of you who follow the Western League on social media, Andy Stone, or Stoner as he's otherwise known, has been building an army of followers with his Footywatch brand. More importantly, Andy is using his love of football to support the Cystic Fibrosis Comfort Fund, and I am very proud to say that a number of Western League teams have got right behind him. Now, Tom and I have both got our Footywatch t-shirts, and I thought it was only fair to give Andy a chance to talk on the podcast and explain what Footywatch is all about.
I've always had sort of involvement with football, and recently sort of stepped back from doing management, so decided to sort of fill the gap on a Saturday by going around watching Western League football. I live in Severn Beach, so the closest sort of teams to me is Calne, Cribbs, obviously Manor Farm in the Southern League, but sort of, Calne's sort of my closest side. So decided to sort of pop along there on a couple of Saturdays and watched a few games. Did a few little tweets on my own sort of personal Twitter as the game was going on, and then sort of enjoyed it, had a good little bit of feedback from it, so decided to set up a separate Twitter page so I wasn't bombarding my personal one with all sort of football related stuff, and it sort of kind of went from there then, really. Obviously I decided to have a hashtag to make it sort of a little bit more identifiable for out there, which is obviously where the Footywatch come from, and basically build it all up from that, really.
And what started with those teams in Bristol, like Calne, your interest in Western League football has spread across the league, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I have made some incredible friends in a short space of time. John Burr from Shepton Mallet is a great guy. When they've not had games, he's kind of come along to some of the games I've been watching, obviously in disguise because he's looking at the rival teams that they'll be playing against to sort of suss their players out.
So does that mean we got a new chant in the Western League? Are you John Burr in disguise?
Yeah, quite possibly. But he's not really in disguise. He's always sat with me, and I'm covered in Footywatch stuff. So if he sat by me, he's not. His disguise would be too good. But yeah, I mean, they invited me up there. They've got we had a good little bit of banter prior to me attending. They've said there's more than Calne in the Western League, and if I'm to attend, I've got to leave my Calne pyjamas at home, and will the sat nav get me there, and all the sort of little stuff you'd expect, sort of entering out of Bristol up to their ground. But they were great when I got there. John Densley, one of the Wailing Wall guys, he purchased a boatload of t-shirts for their reserves, and I think they had about 25 tops off me actually in total. Made me feel really, really welcome. So from just going to Calne, where I knew people anyway. Also, I had friends at Cribs in Tony Beecham, who's a manager, and Crank Hughes as assistant. I kind of knew all those guys anyway. But then Seps and Mallet, to be fair, they're probably, I wouldn't say I've got a favourite, but they're up there in one of my favourites, purely just, with the relationship I built with them off the back of this. I've got friends at Roman Glass as well, Liam Greening and Andy Gurney, know those both quite well. So obviously, again, Roman Glass is quite close to me. But I've been down to Bridgewater, they were good. Had a good little crack with their ultras, as I named them, behind the stand, all the young lads with the drum. They were brilliant. It just seems sort of everywhere, someone sort of finds out who you are and what you're doing, they welcome you in open arms. And like I said, Brislington, Wilf at Brislington's been unbelievable. Like I said, I desperately need to get to them, but every time I seem to plan one in, the weather unfortunately gets the better of us and prevents us from meeting. But we're close. We're definitely close to getting one in soon.
Well, let's talk about what you've been doing, because other than just going to games and obviously tweeting about them and stuff, there's a very serious exercise that you have been doing, and it's wonderful to see that so many Western League clubs have embraced what you're doing. You are selling merchandise to support the Cystic Fibrosis Comfort Fund. How did that come about?
Yeah, so basically with this one, obviously, it's quite important to me. As much as I love my football, this sort of is probably more important for me. I lost a friend. His name was Sam. We all called him Sid, but I lost him to cystic fibrosis when he was 21, and a really, really good friend of mine. Bit of an age gap between us. I was managing at Avonmouth, and a group of young lads came into play, and Sid was always involved, but not being able to be involved as much as a player due to his health and stuff, and led a great life. Lived the dream, as we like to say. Lived it to the fullest. Still went on lads' holidays. Still drank. Still kind of did everything he could, even knowing he knew in the back of his mind he'd have a short life. So when we lost Sid, obviously we did a fundraising football match in his memory, and we donated all the money to the Comfort Fund then. And that was my first sort of involvement with the charity. And then I always sort of felt to sort of keep Sid's name going, part of me would always try and do something every now and again to sort of, to keep money coming into the charity. They do a lot of work for local families in Bristol with, children that are suffering from CF. So it felt like it was a good thing to do. A couple of years ago, I did a charity cycle ride from Old Trafford in Manchester to the Memorial Stadium in Bristol. And I raised just shy of £5,000 for charity doing that. So with what sort of got me on to thinking the idea with the t-shirts, my wife said to me, if you're going to do these t-shirts, why don't you put something to do with CF on it, and see if it can get, see if you can raise some money for the charity. So I kind of thought if I did 20 or so, manage to shift them, make a few quid for the charity, it'd be a good cause to raise money for, and also I can give that money back. But I'm probably nearing sort of 250 t-shirts now, which is absolutely mental. I didn't expect it to get anywhere near that at all. And I've sort of in double figures in hoodies, nearly sort of 40 bubble hats have been sold. So it's literally just generating money all the time, and obviously I'm able to pass it on to the charity. I had a good chat with Kathy, who's the sort of the lady I speak to quite a lot of the calls, and she couldn't believe how well it's taken off in a short period of time, really, because I didn't start really doing this until about sort of late September, early October. So it has spread so far. Obviously, I'm doing my thing by going on Twitter and writing about the games and stuff, but I wouldn't have been able to get this sort of achievement from it if it wasn't for the clubs that have been involved. Obviously, Calne, Brislington are involved, Bradford Town, Bitton, the list just of course sort of goes on and on and on. And with them getting involved and buying the t-shirts and wearing them as warm-up tops, and that's sort of sharing awareness over social media. People are seeing these things, getting in touch with me, and it's sort of all blossomed from there, really. I've had a couple of footballers on board as well. Chris Lyons, obviously former Bristol Rovers Chris Lyons, he's had a t-shirt, and he's posed a couple of pictures in it. I met Scott Murray at Ashton Gate, and he's done some photos and posted some pictures inside the ground. Herbie Kane, who's a young up-and-coming local guy from Calne, who's at Liverpool, currently at Hull. He's had a photograph of one. Bobby Reid. So all these sort of stars are also getting involved. So even though it's not grassroots, obviously from them, but it's still kind of promoting awareness for the charity, which is fantastic.
It's a wonderful thing that you're doing, Andy, particularly to raise awareness and money for the Cystic Fibrosis Comfort Fund. And I hope people who are listening to this go and have a look at their website to understand more about what that Bristol charity does. But for people who are really keen to get behind what you're doing, I noticed that you've nearly run out of merchandise. Is there still things available that people can get off you?
Yeah, I've still got probably down to about my last 10 t-shirts. I think I've got about 5 large and 5 mediums left, a couple of hats. But to be honest, I mean, I can sort of get these things made and turned around sort of in a space of about a week. So if somebody else wants a t-shirt and I haven't got their size, I'm more than happy to sort of place the order and get some extra ones made. The hats take a little bit longer, but again, I'm still sort of, as long as people sort of want to buy it, the more I sell, the more I raise for charity. So.
And what's the best way to get hold of you?
So you can contact me obviously via my Twitter page, which is, as you mentioned, is AS_footy review, and I've also got an Instagram page which is Footywatch_stoner. So you can obviously contact me via either of those, and then obviously we can go from there then to what sort of orders. If it's just a single shirt, if it's a single hat, if it's 10 shirts, if it's 10 hats, anything we can I can get rid of, I can make more money for charity. It's brilliant, really.
Right, well, I very much look forward to welcoming you to Devizes Town when you continue your tour around Western League grounds. I shall be wearing my T-shirt, because I've got one for you and got one for Tom Hiscott as well, who edits the Western League Bulletin. So thank you for everything that you're doing to raise money for this wonderful charity. It's been lovely to hear from you, and great that you've involved the Western League.
No problem. Thanks for your time, Ian. Lovely. Thank you.
Please keep an eye out for Andy this season. He's still going to plenty of clubs, and it's great work that he's doing, and I know that everyone supports that. Right then, we will turn our attentions to matters on the pitch now, and we kick off our coverage of this weekend's football. That's Saturday the 22nd of February, and we start in Bridgewater Town.
We do. Pretty big game for Calne there. They obviously, I'd say they're probably this season's surprise package. Up towards the top of the Premier Division, sorry, and they found themselves 2-0 down with 20 minutes left on the clock away at Bridgewater, but managed to come away with a pretty valuable point, I think. Bridgewater started really well. They had a goal disallowed inside the opening 10 minutes, but managed to make amends a couple of minutes later. I think halfway through the opening half, a long throw from Tom Ellis. Found Jake Brown, who managed to fire home to make it 1-0 to Bridgewater. And then just a couple of moments later, it was another long throw. So, that was definitely their MO for the afternoon. That made its way into the box and was headed home by Owen Irish. So, 2-0 to Bridgewater, 2 long throws, and, a pretty strong lead for them. But Calne managed to use that tactic themselves 20 minutes from time. As I say, they 2-0 down. In a little bit of a hole, probably staring at a defeat, but a long throw of their own found its way to Sasha Tong, and he finished smartly from inside the area to set up an entertaining last 20 minutes. And with the last kick of the game, it was Aaron Robbins who managed to poke the ball home, and as I say, gain a pretty important point for Calne, and a 2-2 draw away at Bridgewater.
Just goes to show, doesn't it, that the show's not over until the fat lady sings.
Absolutely.
And that's no way to talk about Ray Johnson. Anyway, we'll move swiftly on to Bridport. Now, the visitors were bitten, and on occasion this season, bitten have blown a bit hot and cold, I think it would be fair to say. Well, they were in pretty awesome form on Saturday, Tom, weren't they?
They were, yeah, and it was one man in particular, debutant Liam Bishop, making an instant impact for Bitton. He scored a hat-trick. Taking home the match ball on debut, not bad. not a bad way to go. And it was Scott Bryce who managed to get them going. Bitten, the captain, whipping home a free kick, which is on social media if you want to check that out. In the 28th minute to put Bitten ahead, and Bishop then struck in at the end of the first half in stoppage time to give Bitten a 2-goal lead. At the interval, it was Matt Groves who then played a blinder for Bitten during the second half. A couple of assists for him, setting up Jordan Whittaker to make it 3-0. And then laying off the ball to Bishop, who put the game beyond doubt, making it 4-0. And then on the hour mark, it was Bishop again, as I say, completing a hat-trick and taking home the match ball on debut. So, again, not a bad afternoon for Bitten and Liam Bishop in particular.
Yes, I think we probably need to do a tabloid headline for Liam Bishop, but I would ask the listeners to keep it clean.
Mm-hmm.
Now we move on to Exmouth Town, a truly incredible attendance at this game, and they saw their side rack up another win against Wellington.
Yeah, mind-blowing attendance, really. I mean, just as we've mentioned, the poor weather that's been about, for 251 to be there on Saturday really is an incredible effort, and they're awarded with a home win, 2-0 victory for Exmouth over Wellington, but it wasn't as easy as it looked potentially on paper. Wellington obviously closer to the bottom than the top, and it was only a goal from Ben Steer in stoppage time that wrapped up the victory really. Jamie Duran had earlier headed them ahead, but then it was, as I say, Ben Steer, stoppage time making it 2-0, and that was how it stayed. So a decent win for Exmouth in front of an absolutely sensational crowd.
Well, we heard from Kevin Hill, the manager of Exmouth Town, at the beginning of the season. It was the second podcast we did this season, and of course, Exmouth were getting used to life in the Toolstation Western League. Well, we're well over halfway through the season now, so I thought it was a good opportunity to get back in touch with Kevin and get his thoughts on how this season has gone so far. And we started off by reflecting on that game against Wellington and the performance of his side.
Every win in this league is, I'd say, it's a great win, especially conditions and all things like that. And obviously, Wellington have picked up recently. I know they've lost a few, but they only lost 1-0 to Partway. They drew 2-2 with Calne, and it was one of them ones where you could easily slip up on if you're not taking it seriously enough. But yeah, definitely the conditions and that lot. I was definitely happy with it.
I mean, it's not been an easy February for you, has it? I mean, you've had losses to Calne, Bridgewater, and Roman Glass. I mean, what do you put that down to?
I'll be honest with you, it's obviously everyone has, as I've said on the other show, is everyone has injuries and that lot, and I come from a spell where I knew I was missing 3 or 4 players for certain games, and obviously it's been coming for a little bit. We've been winning games, but we've not been at ourselves for a bit, and I had a few missing away at Roman Glass, yet we went 2-0 up, which did annoy me more than anything, to suddenly lose 3 goals in like 20 minutes for us, where we're usually quite strong at the back, and we lost it there. And Calne was no different than thinking. We turned up, a few light, but everybody can be light on the day. But we just didn't perform at Calne. It's not like my teams. They usually ratting. They give me 110%. And I'll be honest with you, first time in 2 years I've been here with them. That's mostly my worst performance from them. So, but it's true. We've had 2 great years, especially a great start this year as well in the Western League. So I can't really fault the lads for their effort.
I mean, it's interesting to see that all of those defeats came away from home. Do you think that was a factor?
Yeah, we're not saying so much for a fact. We are strong at home, and like I say, we have beaten. I think we're unbeaten. The last time we lost at home, touchwood now, said it, was a year ago, Boxing Day, where we lost the last minute own goal after being on top. Lost 1-0, but other than that, we are strong at home. So, as you said, things. But yes, we lost away from home. It wasn't that. I don't like to pinpoint things out, and we had no. I had our youngest lad in goal for the opener. He'd done really well in a couple of games before, but like I said, I was without a keeper, and he most probably stepped up 5-6 divisions and come and help me out. But a couple of little mistakes, but it's not his fault, because we're all in it as a team, and it's a big step up for him. And trying to find a keeper nowadays, this late in the season, is hard. Just for a couple of games, because I lost the keeper, so for that spell, all 3 games are lost.
when we spoke last time, you discussed the club's ambition to win promotion out of the Western League in what was a 5-year plan. Now, given the fact that you're third in the league at the moment, do you think that puts you well ahead of schedule?
We are ticking along nicely, especially the 2 years since I've been here, from where they were to the last year's league and then coming into this league. Obviously, I didn't expect to be right up here. I was just going to come in. I knew I had a decent team, and in the top 6 would have been great. Still, it's great they finished top 6 now, but people look at us as being in the top 3, 4. Yeah, sometimes you can go too fast here and go up for the leagues too quick, and then it all comes tumbling down. But you've got to get the structure right behind the scenes. Moving up the leagues, I've got to make sure if suddenly did come up, when you did get promotion, can my players travel next year the further distances, all even work early, it all coincides moving up. You know what I mean? So it's all a bit of make sure everything's right and everything's right balanced, the club's right behind the scenes. And a little bit like, say, Willand done. I get on well with Russ and that lot. But they sat in the league for a couple of years, same as Parkway, they've been in 2 years. And when they're ready to go, you go for it. And if you are, it's because a lot further travelling, a lot more cost of travelling, a lot more cost of referees. It's all what clubs like us have to take into account. So, yeah, but definitely we are building. But as long as we get it right behind the scenes, then, yeah, looks to go up.
Now, I mean, there's only 2 teams above you because, as I've just said, you're third. And one of those is Plymouth Parkway and the other one is Bradford Town. Do you think that they can be caught?
Oh, I would say, yeah, because we've still got to play Bradford twice. Parkway's still got to come to us at home when we're strong. So we've got to say, Tavistock's still got to play Bradford twice. I mean, so it's going to be it's going to chuck some things up there. Yes, we beat Parkway home in the League Cup 4-1. People don't like coming to us, but saying that, I know what's coming up, and to be honest truth, I am missing a few players for a couple of games soon, so you can see us maybe struggling 1 or 2 games, and I'm not going to name them ones, because Matt pulled me weeks out and people missing, so I do know where I am going to be weak for a couple of games, but if I can get through them ones, it'd be fine. But yeah, we'll definitely have a say, but then even if we finish 3rd, 4th, 5th, it'd be a great season for us. But yeah, Bradford, Parkway, obviously they're up there. I haven't seen Bradford, to be honest with you, but it's just what people tell me. They're a strong, solid side. I would always say Parkway would be the favourites. They've always the ambition to go up strong. But I can't really comment on Bradford, only what people say, and I haven't come across them or seen them myself yet.
When you look at the chasing pack of teams around you in the league, you've obviously got Calne and Tavistock. Now, of course, Tavistock you'll know well from your days in the Peninsular League. But what other sides have that you've come across this season have impressed you?
I said that's quite a few of them. Shepton Mallet are a decent side. Yes, we beat them at home and we beat them away in the Les Phillips Cup 2-1, but we've got them a week Tuesday. That'd be a tough one. We haven't come across Clevedon. There's a few teams we still got to play twice, but we have played quite a few of the bigger sides up the top there. And yet we've still got to play. I think there's a fair few mid-table sides. But then saying that, that's always dangerous for us. We always pretend to perform better at home when we're playing the better sides, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. We're actually out there. So Calne can be decent on their day. Yes, we didn't turn up and offer a thing, but I thought they were good when we played them at home. I thought they were an organised side. I've come across Tavistock. I know will definitely be an organised side. If they stay injury free, they'll have a little say in it. Bitten obviously a big physical side. If people start dropping points, but I can't really see Parkway and Bradford dropping for the extent of them catching up. Obviously, catching us, it could be a different issue for them. But yeah, obviously, I still look around. I don't really look at the Parkway Bradford. I look at the teams around us. We finished 3rd, but yeah, if we keep nicking away, we suddenly beat Parkway. We suddenly beat Bradford at home, and it just makes it all up. They still got to play each other twice, so it'd be interesting.
Well, you're back on the road at the weekend, and this time you're going to Clevedon. Probably a good time to take them on. Are you hopeful that you can keep your good run of form going?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, a nice little stadium. It's nice going in there. It's only an hour journey up the road for us. Not if it's too far. Yeah, definitely. Obviously, they were up there, but they've lost a couple on the trot recently. Yes, to Parkway, Saturday to wherever it was, whatever. But yeah, I see they slipped down the thingy, and it might be a time to catch them when they've had a couple of losses. And yet we've had a couple of wins, and it gives us a bit of belief, especially going into Saturday Clevedon, and then also Shepton Mallet. If we come out them 2 results, you know what I mean, with 4-6 points, I'd definitely be happy. Then sets us up for a few home games.
Well, that's a lovely segue into the final point I was going to make, and we can't really talk about your home games, your home form, without talking about the quite phenomenal support that you enjoy at home. It really must. I mean, does it? Do you and the players really feel that it's a 12th man for you?
Oh, definitely. Because there's a few local ones, a few old boys that love shouting away, giving the support. But it is actually nice. And I know it's like when you're playing. I play at the level and stuff like that. When you're on the pitch and you do look around, you do notice the crowd, and you feel one side's full, and the other side's suddenly full, like the other day, and it's good to blowy conditions, and it's drizzling with rain, and yet you still get 251 there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yes, we're good at that, and the guy that does it, Cookie, to be fair, with the club, he thinks of all these promotion things, and he thinks of things trying to do to get people in the club. And to be fair, they've done something this weekend that was Bring a Kid Day, and it was like £3 for an adult and a kid, so basically half price for an adult, but the kid's always getting free. But of course, if they come back and they really enjoy it and they want to come again, then they want to come next week. It's a knock-on effect, really. You look to get these people keep coming for years to come, you know what I mean? Enjoying non-league football, getting them back coming in. And there was loads of families there, loads of different faces there Saturday for us, so it was nice.
And my thanks to Kevin for his time. One final game that we're going to review in the Premier Division. This was probably the game that I should have been at on Saturday, just down the road from me in Westbury. 5 goals, a 5-goal thriller. Westbury United against Brislington. Tom, how did this one pan out?
Well, yeah, this was probably game of the day. I mean, no goals in the first 70 minutes, so you can tell that this was a frantic finish to this one, and an absolutely amazing comeback from Westbury. So Brislington, as I say, with 70 minutes on the clock, they managed to go ahead. Lewis Ellington crossing into the box for Rico Best, who applied the finishing touches to put the away side 1 goal to the good. And then just a couple of moments later, they caught Westbury on the counter again. And it was Best who turned provider this time, setting up George Box, who made it 2-0. And looked like he probably delivered the 3 points for Brislington. But Westbury had other ideas, and managed to regroup really quickly. Callum Demkiv, he was pretty important in the comeback. He flicked the ball home to make it 2-1, so got them on the score sheet. And then his low drive into the box deflected off a visiting defender and managed to find its way into the back of the net. So that made it 2-2, and that was 4 goals in the space of just 9 minutes to make it 2-2. So obviously game completely coming to life in the closing stages, and you probably knew that there would be a late winner, and that was what happened, and it came for the home side. It was a Ryan Bowl corner, a bit of a set piece wizard, I think, for Westbury. It found the head of Sam Jordan, and he managed to get his head on it and send it into the net, and obviously delighted the home fans. A 3-2 win for Westbury over Brislington.
If you're thinking, Toolstation, I know they'll save me money, but do they have all the top brands? You know, DeWalt, Makita, Einhell, Stanley, Myra, Kudox, Nest and Santex. Yeah, they do. Over 15,000 trade quality products in the range from the leading brands with prices that are hard to beat. If you want a helping hand to save on your next job, try Toolstation. With over 300 branches, there's always a Toolstation near you.
Now, moving into the First Division, and one of the headline acts so far this season has been Ashton and Backwell United. They took on early season favourites Cheddar, and really Ashton, well, the only thing we can say about this one, Tom, is that Ashton and Backwell's awesome form has continued. Absolutely.
They are absolutely rocking right now. They've won 9 of their last 10, the Stags, in the league since the start of December, I think that is. So they're firmly in the title race, and another win on Saturday afternoon over a Cheddar side who, as you say, were probably pretty fancied at the start of the season, but have dropped off a little bit. And they've definitely played second best to Ashton and Backwell, who are one of the sides that are pushing for that promotion spot. And it was a 2-0 win for Ashton. Unfortunately, I don't have the goal scorers' names, but 2 first half goals for the home side managed to lead them to a 2-0 win over the Cheesemen.
communication with Ashton and Blackwell, certainly we need to that awesome amount of form that they're going on. I mean, I keep on going on about Radstock on the podcast, as I'm sure regular listeners will know. But really, Ashton and Blackwell they've almost, one might dare say, they've got something of the hen grove about them. And I don't mean that in the current sense. I mean that in the traditional sense. If you remember a few seasons ago when you saw Hengrove's great sort of form coming, I mean, they really are the coming team, aren't they, Ashton, at the moment?
They are. They really are. I mean, they were probably the team that have come from behind a little bit. It was tight at the top, and they've now added another name to that group of teams. That well, I mean, it is ridiculous how tight it is, but they keep winning, and obviously they keep climbing that table.
Right then, well, moving on to the table toppers, Calne Town. They took on Wincanton Town, and on this occasion, Tom, I think we can safely say it was Calne that were at the races.
Only just, yeah. A really late winner for the home side at the final furlong. You could say they managed to get over, but it was a 2-1 win for Calne over Wincanton. But it was, as I say, a stoppage time winner at Bremhill View, helping them to the latest 3 points and helping them cling on to top spot. Obviously, with the chasing pack closing in a little bit. But Stuart Windsor, he's their main man, isn't he? Recently, obviously reached 3 figures in terms of goals for the club. And he was, important once again. Powered his side into a 1-goal lead midway through the first half. But Wincanton, not the easiest team to beat, I wouldn't say. I think they've, they certainly hold their own against some of the top sides, and obviously they are in the top half themselves. So a decent team, and they managed to grab an equaliser on the hour mark, and that was Gary Chapman, who levelled things to set up, a tense last half hour for the Lily Whites. Obviously are chasing victories, and they had to wait until the 92nd minute to secure that. Second half substitute Lewis McCarran, he managed to put a cross in, and it was Windsor again, obviously Mr Reliable, and scoring what proved to be a vital winner. So a 2-1 win for Calne over Wincanton.
If it was a horse race, it would have gone to a photo finish and Calne would have won by a nose. There you go. That's the sort of puntastic nonsense that you'd expect from me. But I'm very sorry to say that that's exactly how I started my interview with Calne co-manager Trevor Rawlings.
Yeah, no, it was a very tight game, to be fair. Wincanton are a decent side, well organised, and if I'm honest, in the first half they had 3 or 4 good chances, and we were lucky to come in 1-0 up at half-time. But in the second half, I think when you've got someone like Stu Windsor on your side, you always think that you're going to score, and we left it late, but we got the 3 points in the end.
I was at Devizes on Saturday, and it was blowing a bit of a gale there. I know Calne and Devizes aren't exactly next to each other, but they are in the same county. Was the weather at all a factor in your game?
I think it was a bit Saturday. The good thing about it makes you keep the ball on the deck, but it was a bit. The goal kicks and stuff like that were causing a few problems in corners. They had to win the first half, and they're sort of 4 corners quite early, and that caused us a few problems. And it never stopped, to be fair.
But you mastered the conditions in the end, and of course there was that dramatic late winner. I mean, did you feel that that was sort of a just outcome for the effort that the boys had put in on Saturday?
I think it's just a testament to the lads that they never give up. A lot of games this season we probably picked up points that we might not have deserved because, like I said, they never give up and they keep going till the end. Saturday was no different. I think we were pushing for the winner. I think they were quite happy to settle for the point, even though they probably felt they deserved more. Yeah, they were sort of trying to catch us on the counter, and in the end it happened that we got them on the counter, like I said, in the 90th minute. And like I said before, with Stu Windsor, you always got a chance of scoring a goal.
That win obviously was important for a number of reasons, but not least because, of course, you needed a result really to bounce back from the disappointing defeat against Radstock Town.
Yeah, well, we had 2 defeats on the trot, which is the first time that's happened this season. Normally, if we've lost a game, we've gone on another little run. But yeah, we lost to Almondsbury on the Tuesday, and then obviously lost to Radstock on that Saturday. The Radstock game was frustrating because we probably had more chances in that game than we've had in any game this season. We had 6 or 7 great chances, and we should have won the game comfortably, if we're honest. But like Saturday, if you don't take your chances, you don't win games.
Radstock, of course, as we know, have been going very well this season, and in a way their league position is somewhat false because, of course, they have so many games in hand. Now, you're 10 points clear of them in the table, but they have 5 games in hand over you. there's a psychological battle, isn't there, between having the points on the board and having the opportunity to win them. Which of the two positions would you rather be in?
I think I'd rather be where we are. Where we are at the moment, we never set out to be, top of the league. We've been up there majority of the season, so we've always been there shot at and to be caught up, really. But those 5 games in this league, no games are easy. And to win all 5, they do very well to do that. So yeah, I'd rather be in the position that we are in, and there's no pressure on us at the end of the day.
We talked about Radstock, but of course there are other sides as well that are going to be pushing you at the top of the table. I mean, given that we're now over halfway, which sides that you've come up against so far have impressed you?
Well, the team that we got Saturday, Longwell, we went down there and we got battered, to be fair. Whether for our keeper that we would have lost that game, but we come away with a point. So that was early on in the season. Wells are always a good side. We're lucky enough this season to have beat them twice, took 6 points off them. So, but they're a decent side. And Ashton and Batwell, they've done a double over us, scoring last-minute goals in both games to beat us by goal. So, there's decent sides in there. I think even near the bottom, you can go down to 12th, 13th, 14th. They're all teams that can beat anyone on their day, and that's why I think there's a lot of ups and downs to come before the end of the season, definitely. You've
been at the top of the First Division for quite a lot of this campaign so far, which is a fact that your managerial colleague Ben Redford likes to remind me of on a Saturday afternoon after you've won another game. So, realistically speaking now, has that changed your expectations? Is this now a title push?
We try not to mention it. Like I said, our outset at the start of the season wasn't, to win the league. We were looking for a top 10 finish. It's a new side. I think our side on Saturday was the average age of 21, which isn't an old side. We're still a youngish side. There's a lot of inexperience in there still. No one in our team has ever won the league or been in this position. So we are just taking it. I know it's a cliche, but we are taking it a game at a time, and we're just doing what we can do, really. When I listened to your podcast before and you mentioned teams that would win it, we never get mentioned. So that suits us to the ground. We must be doing something right to be where we are all season.
With 4 teams being promoted from the First Division this season, whether you win the league or not, you're certainly in a very strong position to be finishing in that top 4. Is that something that you'd considered?
Obviously now, we said where we are at Christmas, let's have a look at it at Christmas and go from there. And now, we're in Feb, I think there's 13 games to go. So being where we are, we'd lie if we're not saying, we've got to be looking at trying to finish in the top 4. But I said down to 7th, I think. I said, we're sure we're on a 5th. They're only 3 points behind us. They got a game in hand. So we're still going to have to do very well to finish in the top 4. But like I said before, we just got to keep going and just do what we're doing and concentrate on ourselves and not worry about anybody else, really. And
geographically speaking, have you considered where promotion from the First Division might put you?
Yeah, well, we've seen the latest proposal, which puts us in the Hellenic Prem. Where we are, that's always going to come up. We're always going to be the first team that's going to be mentioned of going that way. We'll just have to see what happens when that happens. The league that's proposed looks a very decent league, to be fair, and with the proposed league of the Western Prem, with all the sort of Cornwall sides coming in, I think it'll be less travelling in Hellenic. So we're just going to wait and see what happens. We've got to finish in the promotion places anyway first to even think about that. So once that's sort of done and settled, then we can look at that.
Let's get back to matters of on the pitch rather than off the pitch. And when I've spoken to other managers on this season's podcast, they're very quick to highlight the very potent strike force that you've assembled at Calne. Now, you mentioned Stuart Windsor earlier in the interview, but do you think that goal scoring form has been critical to your success this season?
Oh yeah, without doubt. Yeah, I think it was his 17th goal over the weekend. Obviously, we brought Jim Melvin in as well from Corsham, and I think he's got 11. So both of their goals have counted massively. But Stu, we rely on quite a lot. A player like that scores goals, you're going to rely on him. We just got to try and make sure we get goals from other areas, which we've done recently. We started scoring a few goals from sort of midfield and stuff, which is something that we tried to sort of do all season, really. But when you've got sort of Stu scoring goals like he does, it's definitely an important part to us.
With a name like Windsor, he's really setting himself up to be Western League royalty, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. I think it was just recently, it was his his 100th goal in 200 appearances for Calne. So it shows, that he's he's a local lad, Calne through and through. So he's had offers to play elsewhere, and funny enough, I tried to sign him when I was at Caution quite a few years ago. And at the time, he went training with Chippenham Town, and I think they were disappointed that he didn't take that up, and he sort of decided to go to Calne Town.
Their loss is certainly your gain. I mean, you've mentioned that it's Longwell Green next up. It's at home for you, which is obviously important, but that's still going to be a massive test, isn't it, this Saturday?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said before, they bashed us down there. I'm lucky to get that point, but that was a different side then. We've got a different side to what that was. I think we've got a stronger side now. There's more competition for places. And the good thing about this season, to probably Calne's last few seasons, that the squad is virtually the same most weeks. There's one or two in or out, but we managed to sort of get a squad, consistent squads where other years they've had players in and out every week, and it's disrupted everything. And I think that's very important if you want to do things in this league, is to try and keep the same sort of 11, 16 most weeks, and do it that way.
That game should also be an absolute humdinger for the fans as well. And it's so important, isn't it, that towns like Calne get behind their Western League sides, especially when they're doing so well.
Yeah, our attendance has definitely gone up this year. I remember a few years ago, I used to go over and it's like 30, 40 people there. We've had sort of near the hundreds this year. So obviously something's happening right on the pitch. We've had a new management change as well, so they've brought some lads in, and that sort of boosted everything as well. More local lads have come back. So both sides at the moment are enjoying their football, and I think people are coming to watch it and enjoying it as well.
And my thanks to Trevor for his time. Now, moving on in the First Division to Longwell Green Sports. Of course, they've been another one of the form sides in the first half of the season. They were taking on a Bishop Sutton side that really are struggling in the First Division, and that's very much how it continued on Saturday, Tom. Yeah,
this one definitely going with the form guide, isn't it? Form book. A 4-0 win for Longwell Green. That sounds pretty conclusive. 2 goals in either half. It was Aidan Sanfelice and Luke Bryan making it 2-0 at half-time, and then there was further goals after the break from Sam Crum, and then debutant Paul Uppington, I believe, has joined from Ashton and Backwell. Maybe I could be wrong there, but made a good start for Longwell Green. A 4-0 win for them over Bishop Sutton.
And finally, in our First Division roundup, we turn to another one of the form sides, Wells City. Well, they were proving that if you're going to be successful in a season, sometimes you've got to win ugly. And this one was a tight affair against Lebec.
Absolutely, yeah. They not fortunate to win it, but they definitely were pushed all the way by Lebec. But they made a good start. They went ahead in just the 8th minute, and that was for Harry Foster, who's obviously leading the way in the First Division for goals this season. That was his 24th league goal of the campaign. He put them ahead in the 8th minute. But it was Harvey Wilkinson who was very much the star of the show for Wales. He managed to keep a clean sheet, and that included a 37th minute penalty save to keep Lebec goalless, and then a couple more excellent stops from all reports in the closing stages as well. As I say, keeping a clean sheet and proved vital. A 1-0 win for promotion chasing Wales.
So that concludes our look back at the fixtures at the weekend. Now we are going to take a look ahead at the fixtures that are up and coming. We've got plenty of FA Vars action to talk about, but we are going to uncharacteristically start on Tuesday, the 25th of February, and there's a very good reason for this, because the irresistible force meets the immovable object.
Some people might have listened to this. Well, most people probably will have listened to this by the time this game's played. Fingers crossed that it goes ahead. Obviously, with some pretty grim weather on the way, apparently, but we'll forget about that. And Belifo Park's the venue, and it's Plymouth Parkway, currently top of the table on goal difference from Bradford Town, and that's who they entertain on Tuesday evening. Identical records: 22 games played, 19 wins, 1 draw, 2 defeats, 58 points each. It's just, as I say, Parkway's superior goal difference at this moment in time, 59-49, which sees them top of the table. But with only 16 games left each, obviously this is it could be a vital night in the title race, and all eyes will be on Belifo Park on Tuesday evening.
all eyes will be on the FA Vars on Saturday. We do have plenty of other fixtures to discuss, but in fairness, we've got to the quarter-final stage in that competition, and we have two teams left. Sadly, both are away from home, but let's hope that that they can pull off the improbable, not the impossible, but it won't be an easy term. It won't be an easy time for either side. Tom, do you want to take us through those quarter-final matches?
Yeah, of course. So we've got the two sides, as you say. Huge week for Plymouth Parkway. Obviously, the big league game on Tuesday, and then another colossal fixture for them on Saturday away at Hebburn Town. That's obviously a 3:00 kickoff. 2 wins away from Wembley, so all the very best to Parkway. And then the other side, Bitton, obviously warmed up with a good 5-0 victory on the weekend. Got a home game on Tuesday night against Clevedon, so a good tune-up potentially for Bitton as well. But they travel on Saturday to take on Wroxham. So as you say, two away ties for our teams, but 2 wins from Wembley, and I was about to say plenty to play for, but there's more than that, plenty plus more. So really looking forward to seeing how our sides go on Saturday afternoon in the Vars.
And we mentioned this on the podcast the last time we talked about the Vars, but given the geography of these two sides, obviously they're not going to be able to benefit from a home gate. But really, we want everybody, certainly in the Bristol area, to getting behind Britain. And all the Devon clubs, I'm sure, and fans will be wishing Plymouth Parkway the very best as they make that mammoth trip up to Hebburn Town. We keep everything crossed for them and really hope that they can pull off. I mean, it really would be a fantastic result for both sides. Historic, in every sense of the word. So we keep everything crossed for them. Now we move on to the Premier Division, and Tom and I will now make our picks of the games of the weekend. And what are you going for in the Premier Division, Tom?
I've got to get greedy, didn't I, this week, and chose before you, but I've gone for 2 in either division. I've gone for a game towards the top of the table. So Calne versus Bradford in the Premier. So obviously a huge week for Bradford. We mentioned the Tuesday night fixture away at Parkway, and then they've got another tough trip on Saturday at Calne, 4th place, and obviously as they just showed against Bridgewater, never know when they're beaten, so that'll be an incredibly tough game for Bradford.
I've gone for Buckland Athletic against Shepton Mallet. It's obviously going to be a very difficult week for Buckland, for the reasons that we discussed at the beginning of this week's podcast. But I mean, they are a very difficult side to beat under any circumstances. I'm sure they're going to be going all out for a victory on Saturday. And in Shepton Mallet, they find themselves coming up against opposition that are in incredibly good form. We know how good Shepton are, so I think that would be a thoroughly entertaining Western League tie on Saturday. And now we move onto the First Division. And what game have you gone for in the First Division, Tom?
I've gone for Calne versus Longwell Green. As things stand, so obviously speaking at the start of the week, that's first v third. That might change due to some fixtures on Tuesday night. But Calne hosting Longwell Green, 2 of the top 4 facing off. Can't wait to see how this one play. Honestly, I'm so excited by this First Division. The top few positions, and obviously this is one of the clashes between those sides, so it'll be a big game, and looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
I mean, you certainly are right to call that out. It really is a top game. If there's another to run it close, I would say that it's Corsham Town against Ashton and Backwell. Now, of course, we've been talking about Ashton and Backwell earlier on the podcast. We know how well they're going. To go to Corsham and get a result, I think, would be another real statement of intent. I know Corsham they're not quite the team that we thought they might be at the beginning of this season, but they're still not bad. And I still think that they're in with a shout of pushing sides in that top 4 run-in. So Corsham Town against Ashton and Backwell is where my money's going, or it would be if I was going to a game. Now, we did the league tables on the last podcast, Tom, so we're going to go for the hot shots. Can you tell us about the leading goal scorers in the Western League?
Absolutely. So, Premier Division, league goals. Adam Carter still quite a way out in front. He's got 28 for Plymouth Parkway. Jordan Harris of Exmouth, he's on 22. And then we've also got Jack Fillingham of Shepton on 20 as well. So those 3 are going great guns. And then in the First Division, as I just mentioned, Harry Foster leading the way for Wales. He's got 24. And then a couple of chaps on 19. So you've got Stuart Windsor of Calne, obviously just smashed through the century mark for his club. And then James Russell as well of Radstock. He's also on 19. So it's hotting up in the first division. And then overall, so in all competitions, including the Cups, you've got Jack Crago still leading away from Tavistock 35. But he's being chased hard by the likes of Foster, Carter, Fillingham and Harris, who we've just mentioned. All of those at least within 10 goals. They've got 25 plus goals each. So, looking good in the hot shots.
Excellent. Of course, as always, we've been reviewing your excellent bulletin, Tom, where all the listeners can find all this information and more. Indeed, there is news from the Western League about the Football Association's proposed restructuring of the two divisions and how that will relate to clubs and potentially promotion. And also, there is the fixtures for the semi-finals of the Les Phillips Cup, which are going to be played much later in this season, where we will talk about them, of course, on the podcast. But for those listeners who don't know where to find your podcast, Tom, can you enlighten them?
Of course. So that is on the Toolstation League website. There is a tab along the top which takes you to the most recent publication, where you can download that as a Word and PDF format.
Excellent stuff. Tom, thank you very much for your time as always, and all the hard work that you put into the bulletin. And we're going to have loads to talk about next week. Let's just keep everything crossed. One, that the weather doesn't beat us, but two, that our sides, Plymouth Parkway and Bitton, do well in the quarterfinals of the Vars. So from Tom and myself, you have been listening to the Toolstation Western.